Okay. So when I get to the back here, you can see on my table that I have a bunch of fins. I have my glue gun. I have my green template sheet. So there's a lot of stuff right there. Okay, we talked about the purpose of fins. So right here, the shape is very consistent, but the size is different. Obviously, the bigger the fin, the more that person needed material to balance all of the stuff. So usually a bigger fin means two things. You either had a larger body of the rocket or you had less fins. Okay. Now we showed that wind tunnel free app yesterday when we were brainstorming because the fins do want to be aerodynamic. Right? They want to, when your bottle rocket is going up through the air, you do want the air to go nice and smoothly around the fin. So that's known as aerodynamic. An arrow cuts through the air easily. So a shape that cuts through the air well and doesn't rub a lot on the air is said to be aerodynamic, which means there's not a lot of drag. So drag is the force of air rubbing. So that's one thing you want to try to concentrate on with your fins, which is why a lot of you have a curved shape like this. All right, or maybe a triangular shape that's going to be on your fin. Okay, so we brainstormed yesterday. Your goal was to get a design onto the template sheet, show it to me, and then I always asked you, well, how many fins do you have? And I ask you that because a smaller fin is okay if you were to have like 5 of them. If you only have 3 fins, then you want to make sure your fin's going to be a little bit bigger. So when I look at your picture, I'm looking at 2 things: the shape of it. So I know this shape right here, the air is going to really flow nice over it, nice and curved. And this is the part that's going to be attached to the bottle. So that's why I like to use this line too. This line represents my edge of my bottle, and that fin is going to be sticking just like this. Okay. Remember your bottle. This is where you need to start to remember that this is the bottom of your bottle. So I do not want to put my fin on this way. If I put my fin on this way, the air is going to hit that flat spot when it goes up. I want to make sure I put my fin on this way so that the air flows nicely around the fin. All right. So when you're ready to glue, I'm going to show you what I call a dry assembly before you even pick up the glue gun. So once you get your template, you're going to want to trace it on your material. So I'm going to have a bunch of them traced. One here, and as close to this as I can, I would trace another one. As close to that as I can, I would trace another one. Then you're ready to cut them out. Now, it is easier to cut them out if you separate the individual fins from the material. So I'm going to cut. When I go to do this one, I'm going to cut this fin off so that I just have this piece. And then you really got to open wide. All right, this is a fulcrum. All right, it's a lever. If you try to cut just with the tip of the scissors, that doesn't even cut if I'm trying to do that just with the tip. You want to take a big bite, open it up wide, get that mark right there, and cut. Now, if you can't make the turn, I can just cut straight out. I'm going to open up the scissors wide, and I'm going to cut like that. And then I'm going to come over here and take a nice big bite and cut like that. So it's much easier if you separate your fins and then cut the individual shape out. So I separated all of these. I already cut this shape out. I started cutting this one out, and it's so much easier to finish one fin at a time rather than having the whole piece and trying to cut one out of that. So that's the first tip. Separate your fins and then cut each shape out when you do that. All right. So once you have all your fins approved, cut out, traced, and then cut out, now we're ready to glue. This is my glue gun. Okay, it's a cool temperature glue gun. I like it because it has oval glue sticks. So the glue stick on the end is oval. Most hot glue guns have round glue sticks. And the glue it's a solid. You can see it's really cloudy. So when I put it in, you just stick it all the way in. And if you look close, you can see there's silver coils, silver metal right inside of this little vent. This is a vent right there. And as this glue gun heats up, those coils get hot and they melt that solid glue, and it will come out of the tip as a liquid. So you're actually doing a change of matter. You're going from a solid to a liquid and then it's dry when it's a solid again. So when you glue, okay, you might use a glue gun until if you live to be 105, you might use glue guns when you're 105. And there's always two things you should do and two things you shouldn't do. First of all, never touch the tip of the glue gun. You might pull the trigger and nothing comes out. Pull the trigger, nothing comes out. So you have a problem. First thing I would do would be to check if it's warming up. Well, you don't touch the tip to do that. If I put my hand right by this vent and I just touch the plastic by the vent, you can feel if it's warm or not. If it's not getting warm, then your glue gun is either not plugged in or the power strip that it's plugged into might not be turned on. But never touch that tip. That's going to get really, really hot. And the other thing you never do is touch the glue. Okay, the glue is going to come out really clear. Well, you know it's dry on your bottle when it's cloudy again. So I've had kids burn themselves in two ways. They touch the tip. I'm like, how'd you burn yourself? I touched the tip to see if it was hot. Well, that's not common sense. You feel the plastic. And then they say, I touched the glue to see if it was dry. Well, there's no need to touch the glue. When it's dry, it's cloudy. It takes about 30 seconds before it's really, really hot, but there's no need to touch the glue. All right, so don't touch the tip, don't touch the glue. You know it's dry when it's cloudy. Now, the two things you should always do, I don't care if you're 105 years old and you're making a nice wreath, a Christmas wreath, and you're gluing, pine cones on it and things like that. You're always going to use glue guns. You always glue in two steps. So basically, when you use a glue gun, it's all about two. Two things you don't do, two things you do. See, I said do in tech. Look at that. Imagine that. So you always start with a thin strip. So I'm going to plug in my glue gun. And like I said, if you have a hot glue gun, you want to make sure you're ready. You want to have your bottle there. You want to have your fins there. And you want to be ready to use that hot glue gun the minute the glue starts to come out. Otherwise, it's going to get too hot and melt your bottle. So I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to let it warm up. I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying you're going to. And then I'm going to plan. Okay, I've got my line on my bottle where I want my fins to go. I know that that's the bottom of the bottle. So I want my curved part so that the air is going to go over the curve as my rocket shoots up. I do not want it this way. Then the air is going to hit that flat area and it's going to slow it down. I want to make sure before I even pick up my glue gun that I know exactly. I'm going to pick up my bottle and I know my fin wants to go right there. Now, do I want the fin to hang down a little lower like that, or do I want the whole fin to be here? You want to be planned before you pick up the glue gun. So I know I want my whole fin to be right on that black line. Now I'm going to put my bottle down and pick up my glue gun. And the two things you do, you always put a thin strip of glue on the edge of what you're trying to attach. So I'm going to pull the trigger, and that's just practice. How hard do you pull the trigger? I can't tell you. If you pull it too hard, glue's going to come flying out. If you don't pull it hard enough, glue's not going to come out. So you got to get used to how hard to pull the trigger. But start at the top. I love it when kids start at the bottom, pull the trigger, and work their way up, because all they're doing is smearing the glue. They're pushing the glue out of the way. You start at the top, pull the trigger, and put a thin strip. Then you put the glue gun down. You don't have to rush. You've got 5 or 10 seconds. And then I'm just going to hold it against my bottle. And I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that will be enough to just barely stick the fin to the bottle. That's not enough to hold the fin on when that rocket fires in the air. So after you do the thin strip and stick it to your bottle, you want to put a thick strip down the right side and a thick strip down the left side. And that thick strip should be about 4/16 of an inch thick on the right side and the left side. And let me show you with an example. So I've got a bottle. I can find the one with the fin on it. I've got a bottle right here. And this is even a little bit too small. Okay, I've got my fin on. And if I look closely, I know it's hard to zoom in, but if I look closely right there, there's a thick strip down this side. And then I take the glue gun and I will put it the tip right there, and I'll put a big squeeze, a big strip down that side. And then hold it up in the air till it dries. If you move quick, the fin will fall over. Okay, but that's how the fin, and I know the nice curved side is right there because this is the bottom. So when the air flies up, it's going to go around it nicely. And you can use your hand as air. Like I said, when air is coming down, my hand goes nicely around that fin. If the air was going this way, my hands will get caught. That's not a good design. Okay, you want it to go smoothly around it. So you always glue with a thin strip. And then the most important part is to take that glue gun, put it along the edge of the fin and squeeze pretty hard and put a thick strip. Turn it this way, squeeze it pretty hard and put a thick strip. You want to use quite a bit of glue. You know the difference between using a lot of glue and using a ridiculous amount of glue. So you do want to use a good 2 or 3/16 of a thick strip on each side. But I don't want any half-inch strips and things. Just use a reasonable amount of glue. You know the difference between reasonable and ridiculous. But if you don't have enough glue and one fin falls off, chances are your rocket's not going to work because it's going to change the balance and the rocket's going to tip over. All right, so I'm going to shut this off. Go back. I unmute there, turn my speaker on. I will present the to-do list. All right. And I'll quickly go over that before I let you go to work. Now, while you guys are working, feel free to listen to music. This is a class where I want you to get away from your computer. All right. But when you're using the glue gun, you got to pay attention, especially if you only have a hot one. You got to use the hot glue gun right away. The minute it melts that glue, use it right away because it's not going to be that. It's going to be hot enough, but not hot enough to melt your bottle. Probably get 2 fins out of it, unplug it, and you can still use it. The minute you unplug that glue gun, it does not go instantly cold. It takes a while for it to heat up, and it takes a while for it to cool down. That's why it's easy to use a hot glue gun as long as after a couple fins you unplug it, and then you can still use it for the last 2 without it getting way too hot. So let me present our to-do list. That way you guys can figure out where you are in the process. So right now, and that's why I like this to-do list in class. I see your hands. I'll get to you in a minute once this shows. That's why these to-do lists are important, because I showed you a lot of information. I do want to shut off my recording here.